Hello, Holy Trinity family. It's Tuesday, November 17th in the 33rd week of Ordinary Time. Not so ordinary time. It's also the memorial of St. Elizabeth of Hungary. If you were at Mass last weekend or streamed Mass, you heard Proverbs 31 as the first reading. It describes a worthy wife, and it's got some good stuff. Capable wife brings good, not evil. She works hard. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. But the reading we heard is incomplete. The redacted version prescribed by the lectionary leaves out some of the best parts of Proverbs 31, describing such a woman's strength, including her strong arms, her dignity, her business savvy, her fearlessness, her wisdom, her sense of humor. And so it is with the story of today's saint, St. Elizabeth of Hungary, who died this day in 1231. Her story is told in the Golden Legend, which is a medieval source, Lives of the Saints, which continues to influence how our Catholic Church tends to present these saintly people even today. And it also leaves out key stories that display, in the case of Elizabeth, her strength, independence, business savvy, fearlessness. And we know about these dimensions of Elizabeth of Hungary through the testimony of 4 women who knew Elizabeth throughout her short life of 24 years. They spoke at her canonization hearings, which were just a few years after she died. Elizabeth, for a little background, was the daughter of King Andrew II of Hungary. And when she was 4 years old, a marriage was arranged for her with the son of a German noble family. And she was sent to be raised with this family in the Wartburg Castle and the Thuringian forest, far from her own family. When Elizabeth was 14, they married her to Ludwig, who was 21, and had become the landgrave of many territories. By 15, our Elizabeth was a mother, and by 20, she was the mother of 3 and a widow who was thrown out of the Wartburg Castle to then come under the spiritual guidance of a cruel and abusive priest, Conrad of Marburg. Look him up. But before that, as a very young married woman, according to the women who knew Elizabeth best, she was supported financially, emotionally, spiritually by her husband Ludwig, who proved worthy of his wife, and with whom he had a tender marriage. She had a tender marriage. They had a tender marriage. He traveled a lot, and Elizabeth was entrusted by him to take charge of their affairs and land. She was appalled at the suffering of people caused by natural disasters, war, pestilence, and general poverty. She shared her wealth, offering money, precious metals, and clothing, including royal robes, to these suffering sisters and brothers. She built a hospital at the foot of the Wartburg Castle, and she helped to tend the sick and the abandoned there. She also created a daycare center for the children of the hospitalized. And then, something that was very unusual at the time, she boycotted food that was obtained through the oppression and plundering of the poor. She would refuse to partake of it. But then her dear Ludwig went off on a crusade and died of disease, his family banishing Elizabeth for diminishing their wealth. She became a sister in the world in Marburg, also in Germany. She was living simply and under the authority of Conrad of Marburg, a priest, a nobleman, an inquisitor, and it sounds like an abuser, as her confessor. What comes through in reading the women's testimony is that Elizabeth would defy Conrad's authority, for which she would receive severe floggings. Against his wishes, she used her recovered dowry to build another hospital, this one in Marburg. She visited a convent where her little daughter Gertrude had been sent, after which she received a severe beating from Conrad. She challenged the clerical authority of a group of monks by chastising them for the sumptuous gilded sculptures in their church. The hagiographers left out a lot of these things. choosing to characterize her as an obedient and humble servant, while the women closest to her highlight her spiritual independence and courage, her willingness to make her voice heard and make her own decisions. Here's an example of Elizabeth's spirit. So it's just the women together, and Elizabeth burst out laughing. She told them, "I saw the heavens opened, and Jesus leaning toward me in a most kindly way and showing me his loving face. The sight of him filled me with ineffable joy and laughter." And they just wondered why she was laughing. And she confided that she heard these words from Jesus: "If you wish to be with me, I will be with you." Today's gospel from Luke describes another wealthy, spiritually independent person who did the unexpected. And I just love today's gospel. It's possibly because I come from a family of people who are short in stature, like Zacchaeus, who climbs a sycamore tree so he can get a good look and see who this Jesus is. So Jesus looks right up at him, looks him in the eye, and says, "I'm coming to your place. I'm going to stay with you." The crowd grumbles. This chief tax collector is a sinner in their eyes. But Zacchaeus scrambles down quickly and receives Jesus with joy, and then announces he's giving away half of his possessions to the poor, and promises if he has extorted anything from anyone, he will repay it 4 times over. For both Zacchaeus and Elizabeth, seeing Jesus and hearing what he has to say to them transforms their lives, opens their hearts to the poor, spurs them to act justly, and just plain brings each of them joy. And Zacchaeus and Elizabeth are only 2 of the many whose full stories I wish we could know. So great a cloud of witnesses have also endured the scorn, exclusion, and shaming of their community, have grieved the loss of a loved one, have suffered at the hands of an abusive priest, and who, upon seeing Jesus' look of love toward them and hearing his offer to stay with them, have become effective bearers of love and justice in the world. So may we, each of us, see God more clearly, love him more dearly, follow him more nearly. And friends, let us endure, persist, persevere, keep going day by day.